I say that is because games is part of a very, very, very long tradition of looking at entertainment from a story perspective, from an interactive perspective. So it's not like games is completely unique, or it just appeared out of nowhere. There is a history behind it. And I also wanted to share with you today some of the stories from our traditions meaning Asian traditions that have made their way into games, right? And for this semester, for your games group project, you will actually be creating a game with an element from your home country, whether it's China or Malaysia, and therefore you will need to tap into resources from Asian culture, Malaysian culture, Chinese culture. And I think you start to see that more and more in different parts of the world. Yes, there are games that are, big games, fantasy games, everybody can play them. But more and more smaller game companies from other parts of the world are making games that are about them, about their experience, their culture, their stories. So I think it's important for me to share that with you, and not just tell you the usual games that you always see, the popular ones, right? So that's kind of like my mission today, and also for the majority of this semester if I can. So I'm going to start with at the beginning, which is storytelling, since this course is narrative design and story creation, and story is an important part of the games that we play. When we think about storytelling, we got to go back like way, 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 way back through ancient times, caveman, cavewoman history, where human beings didn't have a lot of technology and they only told stories around the fire at the end of the day, telling people what happened that day, telling their children about things that they went through, their ancestors went through. Basic storytelling skills that maybe some of you grew up with, with your parents. If your parents are very good storytellers, they might do some of the same things. And you might do some of the same things if you like to tell stories to other people. So story creation actually is, I would say, hardwired or very much a part of humans. Right? We are the only species that speak, have language that also revolves around stories and narratives. So that is what makes us special and sets us apart from other species. And at the end of the day, storytelling, as you can see in all my images here, storytelling is fundamentally a group kind of activity, right? It's shared, it's always something done with others, and the experience is richer because of it. Now let's look a little bit at definitions. Okay, this is not going to take too long, but it just gives you a little bit of grounding. And I always think if you're going to learn game design, you should try and know as many things as possible so that your worldview is expanded. So if you think about story, the definition of the word story, which is an English word, actually originally comes from a Greek word, which is historia. So the word story in Greek is actually historia, and the British or the English, they love to take words from other countries and then make it a part of English dictionary, which is what they're famous for. And so they took part of that word historia to become story. But what is essentially the meaning of historia is basically finding out something, learning the narrative or the story about something. And what is this something? It's basically human history. All right, so when we think about histor in Greek, it's basically about things that we learn from like a wise person, someone who knows a lot. And what is it that we are learning? We are learning our own history, how we came to be, the things that we used to do, the things that humanity actually participated in way before you had television, phones, games, computers, etc. Now, there's another word that is also an important part of our course, which is narrative. So the word narrative, again, English word taken from Latin, and the Latin original word is narrativus. Essentially, it means telling a story, right? So if you look at the difference, narrative refers to the telling part. So it refers to actually a verb, an action word, which is how we tell, whereas story is what we tell. Now, how we tell, if you're looking back in ancient times, before a lot of technology, how we tell using our voice, right? So we have oral tradition, People use their voice to tell stories. That's why a lot of times people whose voice very nice to listen to, their voice very engaging, you know, you don't fall asleep, you get very excited. That is the kind of voice that will make the story more exciting. Now, I always try to make my voice as interesting as possible when I speak, because I know you can't really see me. And if you do see me also now, we are limited by a screen and maybe network lag. I'm pixelated, you can't see me too good, but my voice should be able to at least carry over to you in hopefully a clear manner. Now, another thing people use a lot is facial expressions. Okay, now maybe you don't see it so much since most of you guys are on webcam, you don't really see any person's face. And also, of course, in the physical realm, when we don't have online class, you are using your bodies to tell a story, using your hands, using maybe even your feet, right? Using your body movement, your body language. So all that is part of the oral tradition, and I'm going to actually tell you it's not very different from games, because in games, kind of we have some of these things too, right? Now I'll tell you what I mean in a very short while. So all these things, as you can see in that image I showed you earlier, is all part of this tradition of telling stories without using a lot of technology, except using the human body. Now, when we think about this voice plus face plus body, all that comes together to form something that we call presence, and in particular oral and visual. Okay, oral, AURAL, refers to not just the sound that we make, but the overall expression, everything that contributes to the understanding of that sound. And of course, visual in terms of what we are communicating through our body, our gestures, our hands, etc. So all that is what we call presence. All right. Ever had a kind of experience where you're listening to someone talking and that person somehow like captures your attention, right? You totally like cannot stop listening to that person. Usually it's because that person has a strong presence of some kind. All right, and there are some people that you might talk to and you just don't like feel so interested to talk to them. So the presence that they have is not as impactful. Now let's translate this to games. All right, I always try to make the transition from the old things to the new things. So what kind of presence are we talking about when we are talking about game? In game, do we have such a presence or not? And I would say yes, we do. So modern games, if you're talking about games using computers, any kind of technology interface.
Dah baru je boleh makan.
Any questions? Can you guys hear me? Okay, I heard somebody asking something. Right. If you want to ask a question, just turn on your mic and ask me. That's fine. Did I hear someone? Yes, no? Okay, maybe not. Alright. Okay. So don't be shy. Just like turn on mic, ask me. I'm okay. You don't have to like wait till the end, because the end could be like very far away. Right, so if you look at modern games, as you can see here from, anybody know which game this is from, this image?
Cyberpunk.
Cyberpunk.
Yes, yes. So
But
you
that feature isn't in the game.
okay.
Is it? I
So
never played the game before.
yeah, some maybe haven't played. I think I remember last week Alex shared and said it's one of her favorite games, if I'm not mistaken. So modern games, we are talking essentially about presence through an avatar. Right? When we play games, we are pretending like there is a presence, and that presence is filtered through a character, which is us, which is an avatar. And ever notice now when you play, especially games that require a lot of investment of your time, there's a lot of this customization stuff going on at the beginning. Now, what is customization? It's basically an attempt to make you feel like you are represented in the game. Okay, so some people, of course, they choose an avatar, they choose the face shape, the color, skin tone, the nose shape, everything they want to kind of like very close to what they want, what they think they themselves, is like, right? So the avatar is kind of like a stand-in for us, and it's our digital presence. Now, the interesting thing about this customization, of course, is doesn't have to be human, right? You don't have to be a human. You can be an orc, you can be a dragon, you can be a creature, you can be any kind of fantasy avatar or character as well. So it's not necessarily must look like you, as long as it is some being that you think represents you and will go around and play the game and feel like you are the one in the game. Now, this will be games that are largely third person, because if you're playing a first person game, you can't really see yourself anyway. Maybe you just see your like hands. All right, so the need to have a very strong feeling of avatar is not there, because first person, you already pretending like the camera eye is your eye looking. So generally speaking, third person is the area where you want to develop this kind of presence in a more real way. And the interesting little fact that I want to tell you is, in Asia or non-Western countries, there is actually more interest in third-person games where there's avatar. Now, first-person games tend to be very popular in America, and perhaps a little bit more popular in certain Western countries, but America predominantly is very obsessed with a first-person game. Whereas in other parts of the world, and particularly in Asia, the research has shown third person is actually more, attractive, or people prefer it more. So my own feeling is partly because people in Asia, we want to see like a presence, right? Because a first person, we just see hand, like doesn't really feel complete. So this need to have a presence is alive and well in today's games. Okay, what I'm gonna do now is, I know this is a quick transition, to make our class more interactive. What I'm actually going to ask you to do is to use a device. Okay, I hope you have your phone with you. And there is a site that you would go to where I'm going to post some questions. Okay, today I have like 2 questions, and you're going to key in your answers to this website here. You can see polev.com, and this is my account, so that you can see my questions that I post for you, and you can actually kind of like vote. You can type in stuff. So whenever I have something that needs your response or feedback, I'm actually going to use this system. So after this, I'm going to actually have a question. So I'm going to just ask all of you to go to this site now with whatever device you have, and hopefully you can find my account there with Carmen with a 2N and then 556. Okay, that's not my number, it's just auto-generated. And you got to key in your nickname or your name, any name, it doesn't really matter, because the system will capture it to allow you to vote only one time. Okay, so that you don't like, keep doing like so many times. So that's why they want to capture a name or nickname, so you don't actually have to put your real name or anything like that. Okay, dokie, so please do that first, and then I'm going to show you my question in a short while. Okay. Okay, I give everybody a minute there. Okay, I'm going to now go to the page. You will still see the website address, not to worry. Okay, see the website address is on top there. Let me see if I activate it.
Yeah.
Okay, 1 second. Okay, I think I have. Okay, I've activated it. And now you guys can start keying in. So the question is there. I've posted a question: why do people tell stories? What's the purpose of storytelling? So you can actually type in, maybe just type, a short phrase, no need to write a paragraph or anything like that. Just type very short, why you think people tell stories, or what's the purpose of storytelling in your mind. Okay, as you type, there'll be a live kind of tabulation of your results. Your words will start appearing on my screen. So let's see if this works. It's worked before, so hopefully it'll work again. Anybody having problem seeing the question? Okay, here we go. So you can see your friends posting. You guys can post too, of course. So the first answer is to let people learn about something in a fun way. Absolutely. Very, very, very on point. Stories are fun. Okay, let's see what other people have to write. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just basically what you guys think. So I'm just curious what you think. To inspire or teach people about the experiences that the storyteller is sharing. Wow, okay, so 2 keywords here I don't really hear often in game classes, which is inspire and teach. Alright, so you don't just want to, like have fun, entertain and make people laugh or whatever. You also want to inspire and teach them something. Then you want to share experience, exchange opinions, instilling information and evoking emotion. Wow, wow, a lot. Wow, you guys love to write a lot of stuff. Okay, same thing. Okay, I don't know, slightly different. Share experience, emotion, get people's reaction. Very nice, very nice. Any more? Share something and share understanding with others. Good. A lot of sharing going on. Storytelling is very interesting. Kills time. Nice. If a person does great things, they always want future generations to know his story. Yes, so it's kind of like a legacy, right? You leave behind your legacy of the things that you know and that you have shared with others. Very nice. A way to relate with other people. So this is about social interaction as well. So you tell stories, people listen to your stories, they engage, ask you questions. All that is part of that relationship. Share thoughts, recording some live event. Good. Entertaining, inspiring, motivation. Very nice. Oh, you guys, I mean, like, where were you all born? In some like ideal education classroom? All right. Again, sharing information, experience, people can enjoy. Very good. Now, anybody want to write anything else like not covered so far? You have inspire, motivate, share experience, share knowledge, keep conversations going, entertain people, interact, social engagement, encourage or discourage certain behavior. Very good. So very much like dealing with younger people, getting them to do certain things using games as the vehicle. Okay, maybe I take one more, then I'm going to move on. Anyone? One more? Or maybe not? Okay, never mind. So you can see quite a lot, really, like way a lot. And clearly you guys like to like type a lot, which is great and very unusual. So that's cool. So I'm just gonna lock this. Okay, lock means you know to key in already, yeah? And I also won't see it anymore. Okay, so I'm gonna lock it now. Thanks to everybody who responded. Later there'll be a different question which is more poll, which is easier. You don't have to type so many words. But thank you for all your feedback, and this of course will be in the video and you can refer to it later as well. So everything that you guys wrote is like on point, on point. So let's talk about some of the function of stories. Now, a lot of it you already mentioned just now, but what actually makes people tell stories? So as what you all said earlier, I'll start with number 3 since that was mentioned earlier. You want to kind of pass down knowledge, right? You want future generations to remember things. You want to have a legacy. You want to basically be part of history, right? Essentially. And then number 2, you want to make meaning from something inexplicable. Inexplicable means it's very hard to explain it. So you tell a story so that it's easier for people to digest it, easier for people to share it, easier for people to like really like feel what you felt. Okay, so story kind of gives a framework for the experience that you went through that maybe is hard to explain in another way. And the last but not least, number 1 is, of course, to explain historical events, right? So you might have things, and I don't mean history like big history, you know, like textbook, history of the country. It could be very small historical events, things that happened to you yesterday, you know, like dramatic things that happened last year to Malaysia, to Malaysians, you know, COVID, lots of COVID stories. So all that is part of history too. Big history, small history, personal history, national history, all that. Okay, so no distinction or discrimination. Games are about so many kinds of stories, and stories are really doing so much, right? It's not just entertainment. Now here, let me talk a little bit about some of the common types. Okay, y'all might remember I told y'all in the first class, I say you have a quiz, or you have 2 quizzes this semester, and the first quiz, some of the things you'll be tested on in the first quiz will be today's lecture, and some of the ancient kinds of stories that I'm going to talk about. But let me just focus on 3 first. So if you think about types, okay, if you want to group all the stories from ancient times into different categories, most story historians will tell you there are 3 categories. Very, very basic and simple. So you might have seen or heard of these words before. Now I'm going to explain what each one means, but first I'll show you some game examples. Games are not that ancient, but they are taking ancient stories as the inspiration for the games. So I'm going to reach back. Maybe some of you have never seen these games. Some of these games are like old. Some of the games I have not even played, like before my time, or maybe not before my time because I'm much older. But games I didn't play, right, for whatever reason. So we are talking about games like Age of Mythology, which if you have played or you've seen before, is taking myths from different cultures and different countries, right? So could be Egyptian myth, could be Norwegian or Norse myth. So myths that are taken from different parts of the world, essentially. In this game, it's Age of Mythologies, and of course they have different it's like a franchise with different series as well. So this game is still quite popular, I think, although I can't remember. I think it's quite old, 2001 or something. Then we have a game that is based on a little bit of history, a little bit of like fictionalized history, legends, things like that. And that is the very famous Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Okay, it's a Chinese game which I think has become so popular. It has also spin-off or morphed into different other games that are based on the original Romance of Three Kingdoms. So I think you have like Dynasty Warriors is also inspired by this Romance of Three Kingdoms. So you have games that reach back into the past. And I also often notice that quite a lot of games coming out of China really taps into Chinese legends, Chinese histories to tell modern day games in a modern day format, but the stories are actually ancient, right? So that's really cool because of course Chinese history is very long and you have so many stories to draw from. Then you might have seen or heard of this game God of War. Quite a famous game because it has like a game, God of War 1, 2, 3, 4. It's kind of like a franchise, became very popular. And what makes God of War a little bit different from Age of Mythology and Romance of Three Kingdoms is God of War is basically focused on one particular heroic figure. Alright? Whereas Age of Mythology and Romance of Three Kingdoms is looking at many characters or many different game characters. Whereas God of War is looking at one particular one, the god Kratos, and it's drawing from Greek myth primarily. Although the later God of War, they'll be looking at Norse myths and tradition. Norse meaning coming from places that are Scandinavian in nature, like Norway, Sweden, and Finland as well, right? So that part of the world. So that's God of War. Some of you might have seen it, some of you maybe even played it. And then if we go closer to like Asia, Southeast Asia, of course India is not quite Southeast Asia. This game is from India. It's called Azura. It's South Asia. Okay, so China is like Asia, and then we go to Southern, which is India, and then of course where we are is Southeast Asian. So let's look a little bit at this game, Azura. I'm just gonna click there and you should. Can you all see my YouTube screen now? Yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Laparlah pula nak tengok bola, nak makan. Tak ada hal, brother. Download Suka, register, game on. Sambil buat jajan bola, barulah syok nak layan.
Okay, the sucky thing about YouTube now is that so many advertisements. I want to like kill YouTube.
Wait, you can't skip it?
I don't know how are you gonna skip it? Next? I don't think next
There's
will
no
go.
skip ad option.
Yeah, don't have now. Now
Usually-
YouTube is just like evil personified. Okay, let's hope it even plays. Sometimes it doesn't, it will go to something else. Oh god. Okay, how do you skip it now? Okay, weird. Oh, there it is.
打球了。
Okay, so that was that. Sorry for the YouTube ads. It didn't happen earlier, but I don't know why it's happening now. But so that was Asura, and you can kind of see it's in a weird way. I would say it's very similar to Kratos, because Kratos is also like one man, very angry, fighting a lot, got a lot of like baggage from his past that he wants to like let out in a rage. And that seems to be like the common the common theme in a lot of these stories about fighting and male heroes from the past. Something that's also based on myth, but this is Mexican in nature, is this game Mulaka. Don't know if you guys have heard of it or seen it. It's very similar. I would say God of War, Asura, and Mulaka are different countries, different traditions of myth, but basically same idea of male heroic figure trying to go back to right some wrongs or deal with some anger or revenge that he has, and then having to fight, whatever giants or mythical beings from the tradition of that country. So for Mulaka, it's okay. Let's pray there's no ads. Oh yes, thank God. So this is a Mexican game, as I said. Okay, so as I said before, they are very similar in terms of how they present the heroic character, and you will also see that essentially the only thing that sets them apart is different kind of art style, and the environment is different. It's more reflective of the environment that the game designers want from their own home country and the legends and myths that are there. And you will also see the bosses that they fight are also from their own mythology, right? So that's primarily different, but the core sort of story or the core narrative actually is very similar. If you want to summarize it, it's exactly like what I said. One singular angry man fighting a lot of bosses to get to the end point where he will suddenly discover the truth about himself. Okay, essentially I have it all down in one sentence. So that's kind of some of the different versions of these ancient stories in modern games. So how do we differentiate these three? So this is quite important because there is actually a clear differentiation. So fables, all three are stories, but fables, they have a moral or ethical lesson. That means they're trying to teach you something. Similar to some of you when you all wrote in the poll just now, you said want to teach you something, want to educate you about something. That's the goal of fables. You always tell fables with a message at the end, like therefore don't steal, therefore don't lie. You listen to this whole thing, therefore don't be an angry man who wants to kill a lot of people. But that's never the message of games with a angry male superhero. So that's fables, always have a message or lesson. Now myth, the biggest core characteristic of myth will be fantasy or supernatural elements. Right? So myth, always you have characters that can do things that are superhuman, that are beyond human, even things that we cannot imagine that can be done. It's usually done in a mythical universe. And that's why a lot of games like myths, because myths give games the opportunity. Game designers have a chance to really go crazy and do anything they want, okay, in terms of gameplay, in terms of characters, action, things like that. The last one is legends. Now legends are the only type of story that is quite grounded or foundationally grounded. That means based in part on real people, okay, real historical characters or real events in history, but with a twist, which is you add some fiction in it. So the game designer has a little bit of creative license to put in some things that maybe did not originally belong in history, but they're just adding it in to spice up their game. So that would be legends, stories based on legend. So there's always must be one element of history that is real or that is true, that we have learned about, or that can be found in textbooks, things like that. So that's the fundamental difference. And it's no surprise in the world of game design or in the world of the game industry, myths and legends are very popular. Myths are probably the most popular inspiration for games. Legends probably I would say second. And fables, I guess, the least. Right? Because people always feel like, I just want to play a game and be entertained. You know, I don't really want to like have someone knock me over the head with some moral lesson. I mean, come on, I go to school for that. Right? So people don't necessarily want that, but we do see that also happening more and more now in smaller studios and independent games where they do want to teach you something, maybe not moral lesson, but they want to teach you something of importance. And it could be like information or some kind of knowledge that people didn't know before, or people from another country don't know. And in Malaysia, we have actually quite a lot of fables. Okay, Malaysian, if you look into Malaysian ancient stories, so to speak, a lot of our so-called ancient stories, mostly they are fables, right? Because there's always a need in Malaysian ancient stories to kind of teach you something. Like, I want to teach you something. So this character, anybody know who's this character in Malaysian mythology? Malaysian fable, very, very popular. When you are a child, okay, maybe not you guys, I don't know your generation.
Sang Kancil.
Yes, Sang Kancil, there he is there, the small little mouse deer. And Sang Kancil, of course, is not popular just in stories. It's reproduced in books, in comics, in different forms of books. Different generations have different kinds of drawing of Sang Kancil, children's stories, obviously. And last time when I talked about Sang Kancil, I had some students say, but miss, it's real Sang Kancil, like how on? So today, I'm showing you real Sang Kancil. Okay, so that's what the actual real, actual animal is like. So this is not a fictional animal, this is a real animal. And this animal is small. And of course, if you drive a Malaysian car called Kancil, that Malaysian car, the small Malaysian car, Kancil car, is inspired, the name of course is inspired by the Sang Kancil lah. But thankfully the Malaysian car is a bit bigger than the actual Sang Kancil. So just to give you a sense of how big this Sang Kancil is, this one is, a Singaporean measurement, because no Malaysian website cared to do this. I was like, what a tragedy. Okay, so Singaporeans have done it because they have Sang Kancils in their zoo. So what they did is they did a kind of comparison, so you can kind of see like how big is this Sang Kancil, or rather how small it is. So you can see like male female figure based on average Singaporean height. This is a normal deer. Actually, I didn't know a normal deer then that big. I was like, holy crap. And then you have the mouse deer. Okay, mouse deer is the English word for Kancil. And you might think, why got this greater? Later I'll show you why there's the word greater. And then of course here's the house mouse, which is the mouse that's in your house, which hopefully shouldn't be there because you surely don't want a mouse in your house unless it's a pet. So that's how big a Sang Kancil is. And to give you a relative size from a Western perspective, you can kind of see this like a European child, and I guess he went to some zoo. This is an old photo, and this is like roughly the size of Sang Kancil. So that boy is about like 4 or 5 years old. So you can kind of imagine yourself and then how big you are at that age, and then Sang Kancil how big. Okay, so this gives you a perspective of actually Sang Kancil is really small and not very muscular either. And just now I said there's greater or lesser. Why we say greater Sang Kancil and lesser? Because greater means a little bit bigger and look slightly different. As you can see, the zoologists and people who are interested in animals, they actually document and show that there is some kind of difference. And you can see the lesser one, the smaller one, slightly smaller, they have some stripes. That's the one I showed you earlier. Okay, 1 stripe, and then the greater one have 2 stripes. But more or less they are small, but this one's slightly bigger. So Sang Kancil, very important fable creature or character. I'm just sharing with you this story. Maybe some of you are familiar. Now, Sang Kancil is always known to be very smart. Very small, very smart, don't think you can fool him. Right? So the thinking is, I may be small, I may look insignificant, but actually I can totally like trick you. Right? I can totally make you do things that you didn't realize. So in this particular story is how he tricked the crocodile, which is bigger and more dangerous and can eat the Kancil, but at the end the Kancil managed to get the crocodile to assist him in crossing the river. So maybe you have seen this story or something similar. Of course, our friends from China never saw this before, so this is the fable from Malaysia. And I'm pretty sure in China you have your own fables with your own animal characters, right? Because animal characters are quite big in the world of fable, right? Using animals to give you a lesson. So Sang Kancil is Malaysia's probably the most famous, but here is the most remarkable thing. I search like every year, so I do the search, but every year so I get 0, which is there's no game on Sang Kancil. No game, no video game, computer game, nada, zilch, 0 based on Sang Kancil, which is like mind-boggling, and I don't understand why. So unless you guys find one, please tell me. But when I searched last year, I searched 0. Only this morning I searched also nothing. So I don't know what's going on. Either they don't want to touch this Sang Kancil character, or too difficult to draw, cannot be, right? Or don't know why, I just don't know. Okay, but to me it's like so perfect to make one game with a Sang Kancil, because cute, tricky, naughty, and cute. Okay, cute being the most important word here. Alright, so moving on. So Sang Kancil, what is Sang Kancil? Sang Kancil in the world of fable and also in the world of mythology is part of this classification of characters called the trickster. Now, as you can see from this word trickster, trickster basically means, okay, I'm using my pointer now. Trickster basically means, as you can tell from the name, I like to trick you lah, right? Trickster, tricky. No brainer, right? Easy to understand. So all over the world, okay, this is just like some of the trickster figures. Some people see trickster as like a god. Okay, it's a very clever, tricky god. Some people see trickster as just like a figure in mythology. But all these are different kinds of trickster figures in different parts of the world. And you can see it as from China all the way to Latin America, all the way to Africa. You have many, many different trickster figures. And the ones that you must be most familiar with, I guess, from television or from film would be like Loki, also seen as a trickster figure. Okay, you can see my pointer now. And Sang Kancil, where is he? Ah, there he is at the bottom there. Sang Kancil, Malaysia. Indonesia also has a similar trickster figure. They just have Sang Kancil, but maybe they're drawing slightly different. But I mean, it's Kancil is a Kancil is a Kancil. It's the same thing. Then other cultures have like rabbits. Other cultures have what else? Then you have this character. Can you see this character, Maui? It's from the Pacific Islands. It looks a lot like which animated character? Anybody know? Looks familiar?
Moana.
Yes.
Moana.
Yeah. So from Moana, what's his name in Moana? Oh my god, I forgot. Do you remember?
His name is Maui also.
Yeah.
Oh, Maui is
It's also
what?
Maui.
Okay, alright. Okay, totally
Yeah.
forgot. So of course the character looks exactly like this. So if you didn't know, it's like, actually Moana is actually the trickster, and I had no idea. So trickster is something that if you study mythology, you will encounter this trickster. And let me tell you, some of those trickster characters which I read when I was, when I was your age in university, some of them are like very like bizarre. Like their trickery is like very sexual in certain countries, and other countries their trickery is like criminal one. Like their goal is to like really really hurt people. And then other trickster figures is like magical, supernatural, so all are different types. Now Malaysian Sang Kancil, of course, is just trickery to teach you a lesson, an important lesson. Okay, so you have different kinds. So I'm going to move on and talk about a few types or 2 types that you might be most familiar with. The first, of course, is the very, very famous trickster figure in this part of the world, which is Monkey King. And you can see him up here. Okay, and then here you have a game completely dedicated to Monkey King. Maybe some of you have played it before, I'm not too sure. right? But it's
This
definitely
is a handphone game.
handphone
Handphone game in PS4.
Okay,
Handphone quality.
I think they migrated it to PS4. I don't know whether it's originally a handphone game or not.
PC and PS4.
Oh, okay, PC as well. Yeah, I've
A
seen
lot
it.
of platform, yeah.
I've seen it on PC as well. But the funny thing about Monkey King is, of course, it's not new, right? It's been going on for like
Yeah.
I don't know, centuries. Chinese people tell stories about it, and of course, you also have movies about it. So to me, bringing it to games is like completely makes sense because you want people to get to know this trickster character, and it's really a fun game to play if you like that kind of game. I'll just click and see whether we have any advertisement. Hopefully, no.
I know this game.
Okay, good. I'm glad if you played it. Okay, what advertisement is this? Okay.
No play this. I saw a video talk about it.
Yeah, have you played the game before? The Monkey King you have played, right? On mobile?
No, not in mobile. Because I said this is a mobile quality in PS4.
Oh, okay.
Although this is a PS4 game, but this is actually is a handphone quality.
I see. Okay, okay, when is Monkey King coming? How is that gonna happen? I gotta wait, I guess. Hello? There we go. Okay, so this is the Monkey King. I won't show you the whole thing, I'll just show you a little bit in case you have not seen it before. Okay, you can already see the environment is different. And there he is. Okay, I'm just gonna pause it here because it's basically more of the same, but you get the idea, right? So probably the biggest difference I would say is the sound effects. So you can see he's making like some very interesting sound effect as a Monkey King, and then some of those moves suddenly after he kicks, then there's a little bit of freeze frame, and then only we proceed. So a little bit of some different interesting visual design there. And then we have our next game, which is also based on a trickster figure. And this trickster figure is the fox, as you can see here. Now, the fox is a common trickster figure, not just in Europe. As you can see here, there is the European fox called Reynard the Fox. It also is actually common in Japan. I think the word for fox is kitsune in Japan. So different countries might have versions of the fox as a trickster figure. And the one that I want to share with you is this one. Okay, while this is playing, I'll just tell you about it. So the game I'm going to show you is true to the stories of this tribal people. And the game company that created this game also is partially owned by the people from this particular Alaskan tribe. So I'm just going to show you. It's called, there you go, Upper One Games. And let me show put the song. Okay, so there was Never Alone, the game. And you can kind of see that it's obviously not like Monkey King, alright? It's a platform game, it's a side scroller, and they are taking some of the images from the original tribal stories that are drawn in a very kind of old style, and they're bringing it to a kind of more interactive and more slightly more realistic looking characters. Okay, not so flat. Now I've played the game Never Alone, and I found it to be very beautiful game. It's quite difficult in part, but the best part of the game, the most interesting thing, which probably you didn't realize, is a 2-player game. So when you play, you can play with your friend. Somebody will control the fox, which is a trickster figure, and someone else will of course control the girl. So you have two people have to kind of like, you have to coordinate, and the goal of the game essentially is to have you work together with the trickster figure. So I find that always very fascinating. You're getting a character to also like collaborate with the trickster figure, and that is actually very rare. You don't actually see that in games. I don't think there's any game that I know of that has this kind of collaboration with trickster figure being able to be controlled together with a human, like side by side. So check out this game if you ever have a chance. It's been around for quite a while. I don't know, I can't remember how long, but I played it like many years back, so most likely it might be like cheaper if you wish to buy it. Alright, so moving along. Okay, so now you're going to do the poll again. So I'm just very curious. I just want to find out, since we also have some of our friends from China, to find out, like, you know, did teachers that you had in school, did they ever like tell you any fables or myths or legends, you know? Did you ever have a chance to hear some of these stories when you were in school? Just curious to see how important are these stories in a school setting. Now, of course, I'm telling you about these fables and myths, but I'm not actually telling you the story. I'm just telling you the characters only. Like, so how much of it do you know? A lot of it depends on whether or not in school you actually learn about it. And if you didn't, then you won't have ability to tap into those stories at a young age. Okay, so far I've got 9 results. Any more?
Miss, how to
Yes?
click on this?
I'm not too sure. Are you using phone or what? I think if you go to
Actually using web,
okay, if you go to this website, I think,
because yeah,
can you see the question when you go to this website?
I need to type.
Yeah, you have to go to this website, because right now it's not really an app. I think it's a website. Somebody who has done it, can you tell?
I'm sorry, I'm using
Okay. Once you
because
go,
I was like I kind of no idea on that.
yeah, you have to type this website. Once you type in, then you can see my question, and then you should be able to just vote yes or no. Okay, just let me know when you're done, then I will show the result. Okay, all done. Can I'll show the result now, if that's alright. Okay, let me see. So let me show the response. Okay, so you can see that's really great. Okay, to me, I didn't expect this number. 67% is quite high. So if you did have teachers, I'm not saying your parents, okay? I'm talking teachers. If your teachers tell you fables, myths, or legends when you're in school, 67%, which is like almost 70%, not quite, then you're already talking about a high percentage to me. Alright, so if that's the case, then there should be no reason why some of these fables, myths, and legends cannot end up in the games that you create. Because like I said, in Malaysia, we still don't seem to be using a lot of our fables, myths, and legends. I think in China, much better than us. Right, so we have a very rich resource already told those stories. All we need to do is kind of adapt them to game. So it's kind of like easy in my view. You're not having to create something like from scratch.